Hug somebody before you take your seat. Turn around and love on somebody before you take your seat. Turn your Bibles to Luke chapter 22. Luke chapter 22, beginning at verse 39. Luke chapter 22, beginning at verse 39. You got it? Not yet? Luke 22, verse 39. I got a regular Bible today, so it's going to be King James for all y'all old school folk. We got more Baptist people first service. They was happy. All right, everybody got it? All right, here it is. Luke 22, verse 39. I'm reading 39 through 45. It says, "And he came out and went as he wont to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples also followed him. And when he was at the place, he said unto them, Pray that ye enter not into temptation. And when he was withdrawn from them about a stone's cast, he kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. Verse 43, And there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. And his sweat was as it were great drops of blood falling down to the ground. Verse 45, And when he rose up from prayer, he was come to his disciples, and he found them sleeping for sorrow. Verse 42, one more time, saying, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. Today, you guys, as we continue in this series on hoarding, we take a turn, we shift a little bit today. We're not dealing with all the heavy stuff we've been dealing with. We take a turn to how do we now come out of some of this stuff. In addition to, we've dealt with the natural side, and some have seen counselors and things of that nature. We've dealt with the spiritual aspect of how we have hoarded and things we've taken in and prayed about trauma and things we have gone through. But then there comes a point, too, in every hoarding story where somebody comes into the situation and begins to take away and remove the stuff that is in the person's house that has been hoarded. Meaning somebody comes in and takes ownership of junk that's not theirs. They come in and they clean up behind the person who has been unable to clean up for themselves. And today, when we look at today's text, we are looking at part of this week that Jesus is entering into. Typically on this Sunday, we call it Palm Sunday, and this is the Sunday where Jesus had his triumphal entry into the city. He takes a donkey and he rides in on a donkey, and they're laying alms at his feet and saying, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Everybody's celebrating him, and his week starts off high up here and slowly declines every day after. Anybody ever had that experience? Sunday's been up here, and then every day after that is just a slow decline to death, and then you come back on Sunday like, ooh, Jesus, I need some more power, because last week was the worst week of my life. Every week has been the worst week of your life, and then you come to Sunday like, Jesus, help me out, because I done been through all kind of stuff this week. And so that's how Jesus starts out. Jesus has a great beginning to the week, and everything declines from there. As he goes through his week, you all, Jesus comes to a point as he gets ready to go into this text that we read. And we see in the beginning of chapter 22 that Jesus has a plot against his life. Okay, Jesus, they're plotting against Jesus. And we all know by now who's plotting against him is Judas. Judas is plotting against Jesus to sell him for 30 pieces of silver to his enemies. All right. Then you get to verse 7 of chapter 22. And in verse 7 of chapter 22, Jesus takes all his disciples, including Judas, knowing what Judas is about to do. Jesus takes them out to Red Lobster, and they had Red Lobster, and they eating that fake lobster that ain't real. Y'all be thinking that lobster real. They ain't real lobster. And that fake shrimp. And they eating and they chilling out. While at dinner, they have good conversation. But then Jesus busts out and starts talking about eating his blood, drinking his blood, eating his body. Imagine how weird that would be for you to be at somebody's dinner at their house and they start talking about, hey, you want some of my blood? You want to drink some of my blood? And you want to eat my body? You would kind of just be like, I'm about to be out of here. So Jesus talks about cannibalism. It's really weird. And then he shifts to saying, oh yeah, one of y'all at this table is going to sell me out, but it's cool. I'm still going to pay for everybody food. We don't even have to split the check, Now we know if it was us, you would be like, yeah, so I got 11 people here. He going to have to pay for himself. Jesus says, I still got everybody checked. Then after going through this weird dinner, after knowing somebody's plotting against him, he's having a conversation with his boy. He's having a conversation with his ace boon. He's having a conversation with his home skillet, Peter. Peter has been by his side. Peter has been the one that's ride or die. Peter has been the one that's had a revelation of him. Peter's that friend that's the thug when you don't want to be a thug, and because they know that you would, but you can't because of your job and you got kids. So they be like, they the one that says, I'll cut old girl for you because I know if you cut them, you're going to get. Don't look at me like that. All y'all got a Peter or a Petette as a friend somewhere that is straight hood, that carries stuff on them that they should not carry. The one that went and bought the alcohol for you because you didn't want to go in and be seen buying alcohol. That's right. Don't look at me like that. And so Peter, his ace, his homeboy, his buddy, his friend, who has said, I know who you are. I worship you. I got your back. Peter, the one who has been ready to fight for him. Peter, the one that has walked on water and his voice. Peter, the one that has been by his side. He now has to tell Peter, you are lying to yourself. When Peter says, I'll never deny you. You my boy, Jesus, I got your back. I'm always on your team. Jesus says to Peter, he has to tell Peter, no, man, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. So Jesus has now had to deal with somebody close to him that's about to betray him. He's had to dealing with what's about to happen, and the disciples looking at him like he crazy as he talks about drinking blood and eating his body. And now he's had to have a conversation with his boy and tell his guy, not only somebody going to betray me, not only was y'all looking at me crazy, but now also you, man, are going to turn your back on me. Jesus has had a rough couple of days. And many of us don't realize that he understands everything that you and I have gone through in our lives because he's been through the same thing. When you walk into verse 39, Jesus has now dealt with all this stuff that has led to this moment. And so after going through all of that, you would think that his week is about to get better. Well, no, his week is about to get worse. Because now Jesus steps into this place called Gethsemane. He steps into this place called the Mount of Olives. And this is, you all, where we shift some, because this is the point in history, in time, and in our lives where Jesus becomes a hoarder himself. Jesus becomes a hoarder because Jesus now begins to take on our junk. Anybody ever live with a messy person? Anybody live with a messy person? If they with you, just keep your hand down. But if you ever live with a messy person, or you got messy kids, anybody got messy kids? Okay, any of y'all messy? You messy yourself. Be honest. You know you messy. Messy is when stuff can't be contained in one spot. when it creeps and grows out of its spot. It grows out the closet. It grows from under the bed. It grows from around. I told last service that when I first went away to college, I was at University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana with two of my boys. We've been friends since kindergarten, since first grade, Justin and Tyrone. And Tyrone was the neat freak of us. Tyrone had everything nice, neat, color coordinated, pants starched and ironed to the hilt, shoes combinated, sitting in the right way they need to be. They had their own little spot. Everything was immaculate anywhere in Tyrone's space of our apartment. We had a 3-bedroom. Tyrone's bedroom was spotless. It was immaculate. He had stuff coordinated by day, outfits coordinated by day, and event. He just something was wrong with him. He was crazy. Your pastor was next in line. I was half neat and half messy. Don't look at me like that, because some of y'all are the same way, because you know what that means. That means part of your house is spotless. And the part of your house that is spotless because all the junk that would be there is stuffed in one space somewhere else that can't nobody see, right? So your front room is clean. Bathroom that people got to use is clean. Kitchen is clean. Your bedroom is kind of sort of clean. And everything that would be in those spaces is all crammed into the back office that can't even be used as an office because you got shoes from 3 years ago sitting on top of the computer that you're supposed to be using to do your work. That's anybody? That's any of y'all? Okay. And so that's kind of where I fell. But then we had my guy Justin. Justin was the messy one out of all of us. And Justin was trying to confine 4 bedrooms worth of stuff into one room. You ever seen somebody like that trying to pack all this stuff in? So his stuff is overflowing. He got pants on the floor, pants hanging out his room. Anytime Justin was somewhere in our apartment, we knew Justin had been there because he always left evidence of his presence in that space. If Tyrone had been somewhere, you would never know Tyrone had been there because he's going to clean up after himself. He's going to wipe stuff down. He's going to use a coaster. I didn't even know we had coasters until Tyrone pulled a coaster out one day. And I'm like, dude, where you get that from? He's like, it's in the cabinet. I'm like, Dad, we got coasters? That's cool. We bougie. And so I didn't even know we had it. Justin, though, you gonna know he was there. Every ring that was on our table was because Justin had set something there and left it there. You knew he had pizza because there would be the plate with crumbs from the pizza and just a piece of sausage sitting right there on the thing. So you knew everywhere he had been because he left a trail. And that's what happens. Watch this. As we have been hoarders in life, emotionally and mentally, as we've been hoarders carrying stuff, every place we have been throughout our life, there is evidence we've been there because we leave a trail of our pain. We leave a trail of our anguish. We leave a trail of our anxiety. We leave a trail everywhere we go. And Jesus now becomes a hoarder because Jesus has now decided, we see it right here in this text, to come in behind us and clean up. I never forget one day, the funniest thing I've seen in my life. Justin's girlfriend and Tyrone decided that Justin was too messy. And so they decided that they was going to do him a favor and clean up his space. So they went in, she washed all the clothes, Tyrone ironed them, folded them, put them up. They had everything hanging up nice and neat and had everything laid out. They vacuumed the rug, cleaned up the room, threw out the stuff that was hanging around, threw out papers, put stuff away. And Justin came to the apartment. And I cracked up laughing because Justin walked in his room, nice, clean, and neat, Kevin, organized. And he said, "Who did this?" I'm taking out a cuss word. And his girlfriend, Aisha, said, "Me and Tyrone fixed it up for you, babe. We thought, you know." He said, "Y'all organizing my stuff to steal it." Oh, I cracked up laughing. It was the funniest thing I've heard. He was convinced that they only structured his stuff so they could have a better opportunity to steal it. Did that make sense? No. But watch this. You and I laugh at it, but we have the same weird response when Jesus comes into our life and tries to bring order. We're trying to figure out, God, why are you messing with my stuff? Why are you moving things around? Watch this. Why are you taking things from me? In order for his room to have been clean, some stuff had to be thrown out. And we don't like, just like Justin didn't like, we don't like folk moving stuff, watch this, that is worthless in their eyes. But we have attached value to it, even when we don't use it anymore. Jesus comes in and begins to take on all the stuff we have hoarded. Y'all might not remember this. Some of y'all is going to give away your age, but you'll be all right. 1972. I don't want to ask who remembers 1972. I wasn't here. Some of y'all were here. 1972, January 14th, TV show came on. This started very popular. As it was on TV more and more, it became more and more popular. And many of y'all will recognize this show just by the tune to the show. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Bam, 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 bam. How many of y'all know what it is? How many of y'all know what it is? See, you did the whole, she dancing and everything. She ain't moved one time doing praise and worship. She over there jamming. Dan, dan, dan. Yeah. It's for those of y'all that pretend like you weren't around in 72, it's Sanford & Son. Sanford & Son was a show that starred Red Fox. And in that show, Red Fox, as Sanford, had a business where he collected junk. Sanford was known because he always tried to get out of work by some kind of scheme or some kind of thing. And his main way of getting out of work was to say he was having a heart attack. It's the big one. Coming to see you, Elizabeth. It's the big one, you know. And he would then let the work relay on his son, Lamont. Their business was collecting junk and then selling it. The crazy thing about collecting junk and selling it is you got to find somebody crazy enough that's willing to pay anything for something that's been discarded or thrown away. Now, when you look at all that happens in Sanford & Son, it is amazing that they ever stayed in business. I don't remember seeing them sell anything. Now, one episode, do I remember them selling not one doggone thing, but they stayed in business. And it's so interesting to me, the more I thought about Sanford & Son, when you look at how God and Jesus have operated when it comes to dealing with us. God has become a collector of sorts of junk, and he's collected this junk that is the leftovers of our soul. He's collected this junk that is all the stuff we have accumulated. He has collected this mess that is us, all our insecurities, all our weaknesses, all our proclivities, all our tendencies, all the stuff we have hoarded that is really of no value and no use to us or him, but yet he has collected the junk. Because anything that has value for one or two reasons. Either it can do something or it is an emotional attachment to the item. And so what they say is one man's junk is another man's treasure. Well, it's the other man's treasure because the other man has found a emotional attachment to what the previous person was not attached to. And what has happened when it comes to us and our lives, God said it's a whole lot of junk in my creation, and I can't find anybody willing to buy it or pay for it. I'm just collecting all this stuff. It's just sitting around in the universe. I got this person sitting over here taking up space and that person over there taking up space. And they not only taking up space, but they taking on more junk themselves. And so you done accumulated junk on top of junk on top of junk. And God says, who is in the world is going to even pay for this stuff? Who going to even spend money on what everyone says is worthless? The devil said they ain't worth nothing, man. I watched them fall. fall. I watch them make the stupid mistakes. I ain't paying nothing for them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to spend the rest of my time trying to make them prove to you that they are junk and that they are worthless. I'm going to spend all my energy showing them how worthless they are. The angels can't pay for it. The angels said, God, we serve you, and we really ain't got nothing. We ain't got nothing to do with them. What we going to do with them? The stars ain't going to pay for us because the stars say we just sitting floating in the sky. There's nothing for us to do with humanity. What are we going to do with humanity? Matter of fact, you threw us up here just to shine light on them. We don't care for them all that much anyway because they give nothing back for what you make us put out to make sure that they are warm in their beds. And everything else in creation, the animals said, we ain't paying for that. You made Adam name us, and he gave us stupid names and then tried to kill us. He always does try to kill us all the time, or they make us pets. We ain't about to pay for them. Matter of fact, God, you want somebody to pay for them, and they won't even pay for themselves. Look how they treat themselves. They don't even like themselves. They won't even put up with themselves half the time. You don't even want to deal with yourself most days. You don't want to even look in the mirror most days. You don't even like how you look, and you were made by God. So what makes God think that anybody's going to spend any money on this worthless pile of junk called humanity? So God says, but I love them, and I don't want to throw them out as the junk they have acted like. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pay for them. I'm going to make me pay me for them. So God separates himself from himself to pay himself for us. Jesus steps down into the pawn shop of creation and goes in and says, I'll pay top dollar for what they don't want. And we see Jesus take on this task right here in our text. And it's not something that Jesus easily does. We often forget, and those of y'all that were at Bible study last week, we talked about this. We forget that Jesus is fully human and fully God. That means there's a side of Jesus that's just like us. It's flesh. It's the stuff you don't want to do. It's the stuff you don't feel like doing. It's the stuff that you be like, I ain't about to do this. You know, there are some Sundays. Anybody ever had to force yourself to come to church on a Sunday? Be honest. It's okay. Today, you had to force yourself. You said it's Palm Sunday. I might as well go because I don't even know if I'm going next week, child, because everybody going to be in there. They're going to be taking seats. I need to just go on this week, get my word in, and then I'll be back the week after when all them other people disappear. Don't look at me like that. Y'all know y'all be saying this type of stuff. You wake up in the morning and you tired and you sleepy, you don't feel like it. Oh, I don't feel like that drive. I don't feel like that long 10-minute drive all the way to South Sacramento. And then ain't no telling who preaching. I don't know if pastor preaching. I don't know if he gonna have the president or somebody here. I don't know who gonna be up there. And then, you know, sometimes he get up there and he could be a little long-winded, child. And I got reservations today and I'm tired. I'll just watch it online. I'll just watch the replay. I'll listen to the podcast. You wake up and I ain't got nothing to wear. I don't know what I'm going to wear. You done stood in the closet for a whole hour. You stood in the closet. You at second service. You meant to be at first service, but you spent all the first service staring in the closet because you couldn't find nothing. You didn't feel like, I think I got a migraine coming on. Your migraine was setting in. You didn't feel like it. Your arthritis started acting up. You're like, I think it's going to rain. My knee is acting funny again. It's too hot. It's too cold. It's too this. I'm so tired. I ain't got no gas. Everything. You trying to figure out how to get yourself. Jesus has been in the same place where he's had something before him where he's trying to figure out, do I feel like doing this? Now, it's nothing as small as whether you're going to go to church on a Sunday or whether you feel like going to work or whether you feel like going here or there. But there are some things in life, you all, that we dread so much that we put it off for years. It's some stuff God told you to do years ago you still haven't done because you don't want to go through the pain of dealing with what you're going to have to deal with to do what he told you to do. And so we end up hoarding all the accumulated anxiety of putting off what we were supposed to do 10 years ago. Eli and I were talking between services, and Eli was like, every year it seems like it's a new something. Every year it seems like God finds a way to find a new test. You go through 10 years of one test, you finally overcome that thing, and then it seemed like God just spent the last 10 years coming up with another test for when you finally pass that test, and then he throws that one out there. You're like, God, can I get a break? Can you pause? And so here is Jesus. After going through all of this stuff, Jesus has gone through all of these things, and now he finds himself in the garden at this place called the Olivet, the Mount of Olivet. It is a pressing place. It is a place where they made grapes, where grapes were crushed in order to make wine. So Jesus has now had to step into a place where it does not get better, but it gets worse. When your call and your purpose is closer than it's ever been, you will find greater pressure than you've ever had. If you find yourself in a place where pressure is letting up, you aren't getting closer to purpose, you're getting further from it. Say, preacher, how's that so? I would think that once I got in my purpose, that all of a sudden the birds would sing. The sun would shine. Jabez prayed, enlarge my territory. I just knew once I got in my purpose, everything was going to flourish. Every bank was going to send me money, and everybody was going to celebrate me, and everybody was going to say, hey, you're amazing. Everybody was going to sit at the table and be like, Hercules, Hercules, Hercules. Everybody was going to say that you're amazing and you're beautiful, and you thought that's when Prince Charming would show up, and that's when the woman of your dreams would show up, and that's when the picket fence would pop up out of the ground, and you would have 2.5 children and 2 cars, and you have a little dog and a cat, and they will live together in harmony, and your house will be beautiful and immaculate, and everything will be amazing, and you will come into the sanctuary of the Lord and lift holy hands because God has been so good to you, and you'll testify of his goodness and his greatness. No, that is not how purpose and destiny work, because the closer you get to your assignment, the fight gets greater, because the enemy does not want you to do what you have been made to do, because if you do what you have been made to do, you are pulling hundreds, if not thousands of people with you. You don't understand how all these people's destiny is connected to your obedience, and the longer the enemy can get you to put off doing what you are called to do, the longer he can keep some other folk in bondage, because you have the key to get them out of their prison, and your key comes on the other side of your cross. If you never go through the cross to get the key, you can't get the key to unlock them. And if they never get unlocked, they can't unlock somebody else. And if they don't get unlocked, you don't know what cure for cancer, what heal for diseases gets locked up when they die in a jail somewhere because they drunk and they never knew they can come off alcohol, because this person never got free and they never got free because you didn't want to go through the pain of going through what God had called you to do. So when you get closer to purpose, the devil fights harder against you. Watch this. And he don't fight fair. He fights with, watch this, your natural survival instinct. The devil don't have to do a whole lot. All he got to do is remind you, this gonna hurt. All you got to do is say, this about to sting. I am, God has not given me a spirit of fear, but I don't care for needles. I think I have an allergic reaction when I see needles. And I have disliked every doctor I've ever had because they are liars. Not Shanika. When I've gone to the doctor, I don't care for them because they are not honest. They say silly stuff to me, like, this only gonna pinch. And then they pull out this sword and gonna tell me this only gonna sting for a second. If it's only gonna sting for a second, Why you got 900 cotton balls and 12 Band-Aids sitting there ready to go? Why somebody got to hold my hand? Why you got to tell me to close my eyes? Why I got to count to 3 and then you lie, talking about you going to go on 3 and then you go on 2 and I'm sitting there dying. And then I hate, Melanie, I know it's not any nurse that goes to this church when they miss the vein and got to do it again. That's when I say, you know what? Why don't you guess my cholesterol? Why don't you prophesy my numbers? I'm a prophet. Let me step back and pray in the Holy Ghost, and I'm going to tell you what my blood is. I'm going to tell you what my sugar is. You ain't got to stick me again because you missed. And I never forget one time they did that, and the lady stuck me. She did it 3 times. She stuck me, and she missed. She stuck me, and she missed. She stuck me, and she missed. And I said, ma'am, if you don't stop sticking me, I cannot promise how I'm going to respond. And she said, well, I'm sorry, young man, but the reason I keep missing the vein is because you keep squirming in anticipation of a stick that ain't happened yet. If you would just sit still, this would have been over with a long time ago. Thank you, Holy Spirit. That's a word for somebody here. God is saying, if you would just sit still in your Garden of Gethsemane moment and let me do what I need to do to process you, this would have been over 17 years ago. But because you keep squirming, I got to keep. Jesus enters into this garden. Verse 40, he says, and when he was at the place, he says to his disciples, pray that ye enter not into temptation. Now, what he's talking about here is not temptation like you want to go smoke. It's not temptation like you want to go rob somebody. It's not a temptation of like your fleshly desires. It's a temptation as he refers to the trials, the severe trials that he's talked about in verses 28 through 38. Let's look at those. Verse 28, chapter 22. He says, ye are they which have continued with me in my temptations. And I appoint unto you a kingdom, as my Father has appointed it unto me, that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And then, verse 31, he shifts. He looks at Peter. And he says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. And when you are converted, strengthen your brother. Now, watch this. Follow me for a second. Listen close. You have Jesus at the beginning of a pain and a struggle. Watch this. Who has just told the disciples who follow him, one of which is Peter, I'm about to go further and struggle some more. Y'all wait right here and pray that you don't fall into a deeper struggle that you can't get out of. He has told Peter previously, Satan desires to have you. So now you got Peter and Jesus in a place where they have not yet entered their greatest temptations. But Jesus says, pray that you don't fall into temptation. Jesus, I need you to make up your mind. Am I going to avoid temptation, or do I got to go through this thing? Isn't it crazy and confusing sometimes when the preacher tells you, pray, seek God, God's going to turn it around, God's going to do it, and you're like, okay, but last week you said I couldn't avoid what God is calling me to. So can I avoid it by praying, or do I got to go through it regardless if I pray? If I go through it, even if I pray, then why am I praying? The reason he says pray, watch this, is not to avoid the temptation, but that you don't fall in the temptation. Big difference. You are not going to avoid what you're about to go through. But if you pray, you cannot fall in what you go through. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. It's not saying evil ain't present. It's not saying evil won't be there, but I don't fear it because your rod and your staff comforts me. Okay, let me go a step further. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. He does not say weapons won't be formed against you. And how do you know it won't prosper unless it's been used? Shazam. Anybody like superhero stuff? Super Shazam. Anybody? Okay. The rest of y'all, anybody planning to go see Shazam and you haven't seen it yet? Okay, good. I'm about to spoil it. You ain't going to see it, no way. You going to see it today? Well, it's in the previews. You'll be all right. In the previews for Shazam, stories about a little boy who finds a wizard. Wizard gives him all his superpowers. And in typical kid fashion, he don't know what he can do. And in the preview, which you've seen, he goes into a store and two guys try to rob the store. Y'all seen the preview? And his friend, his sidekick, his ace boon, tells him to do the dumbest thing ever. See if you bulletproof. And he says, shoot me. And they shoot at him, and the bullets fall. Him and his friend look down at the bullets and like, bullet immunity. The only reason he knew bullets couldn't hurt him is because the bullets had been made. The gun had been made, and the gun had been used. And because it failed when it was used, though it had been made to destroy him, he realized in that moment that he was stronger than the weapon that had been formed against him. When you pray, you are not praying that the devil won't shoot you. You are praying that God will show up and show you the immunity you have against every arrow and dart that the devil fires against you. Prayer is not to get rid of your enemies. Prayer is to reveal your enemies, to reveal your strength. You're going to catch that later on. Prayer is to reveal your enemy, to reveal your strength. You don't know how good you are until you go up against the best and win. Every devil gives you an indication of where God is taking you next. So take a second. I want you to think for a second. What do your enemies look like right now? Your enemy gives an indication of what you are stronger than. So here it is. He says, pray. Not that you don't go through temptation, but you don't fall in it. Then it says he goes further. Stone's throw away to pray. Jesus goes off a little bit further. And this is where it gets interesting. This is where Jesus starts hoarding. He says, Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass. This is how I know Jesus is like us. Because, okay, Jesus is like me. I'm going to say he's like me. Some of y'all been saved a long time. You know Jesus more than I do. I've had a gazillion moments, where God has told me, this is what I'm about to do. This is what's about to happen. And I have said, 1 second, God, let me get my negotiator and see if we can't plead this down. Because what you are suggesting, I think there must be a better way to go about this. Because your way just seems a little extra. It just seems like a little bit of unnecessary stuff. It's like if grapes could talk to us. Grapes could talk to us and just pretend like don't none of y'all drink wine ever. Don't look at me like that because I know, you done had some rough days. You didn't take communion. Your kid's crazy, and the doctor said red wine is good for your heart, and you want to make sure your heart is strong. I get it. But if a grape could talk to you, a grape would say, hey, Damon, got a question. I was thinking, before you take communion tomorrow, I just wondering, man, I know you had a rough day at work. I know life has got stuff going on, and, me helps you unwind. The problem with this, though, is I would love to help you out, brother, but is there a way for me to help you without you crushing me? Is there a way for you to feel better about work? Is there a way for you to feel alleviated? Is there a way for your heart to be made strong? Just maybe, there is some possible way for you to still have happy juice without me being stepped on by somebody's nasty feet. And if we're honest, we've been there like Jesus. We are asking God, I know you want to clean up the mess, but is there any way you can do it in the least painful way possible? Is there any way, God, the preacher told me, you've been through all this because God wants to use you. And we done heard folks say you don't covet somebody's anointing when you don't know their story. You don't know their glory because you don't know their story. And we talk about, I've been through this because God wants to use me. And God then took me through hell so he can exalt me and he can move me into purpose and destiny. And I just feel like, and maybe it's just me, it's just your pastor being honest with you. Some days I feel like, God, you know everything. You know everything. You have existed before there was anything. And you telling me that you can't figure out a better non-IKEA way to put my life together with less complication. You telling me the only way you can use me is that you put me through hell. You telling me you as God, the creator of everything, can't figure out a way for me to preach your word without me having to gone through all the stuff. Are you telling me as God, you can't give me a business without me first having been homeless? You telling me as God, I can't talk about how good you've been without having had cancer? You telling me as God, you couldn't figure out another way to use me in song, to write a song without me having to lose my mama? You telling me that you are the God of all creation and there was no other plan in place for me to get to where you wanted me to get to without me being raped and molested and robbed and almost losing my mind? You telling me as God, you couldn't figure out a better plan? It's hard to worship when you're trying to figure out, is God as smart as a fifth grader? Jesus just like us. Jesus like, dude, Dad, come on. Is it possible that maybe you can figure out another way for me to be great without me having to go fight for custody of my kids? Maybe there's another way for me to be great without you taking my job. You got it. It's got to be another way for me to have been an amazing man of God without growing up without my daddy. Jesus says, come on, Dad. Is it possible? Now watch this crazy stuff. In mid-sentence, Jesus shifts. He goes from, Daddy, please, some other way, figure out some other plan, to saying, you know what, it's cool. Nevertheless, not my will, your will. Daddy, can you please do it a different way? But you know what, never mind, don't worry about it. However you want to do it, I'm cool with. How does he shift mid-sentence? He shifts mid-sentence because if you look at the next verse, actually let's look at the next verse. Verse 43. It says, and there an angel appeared unto him from heaven, strengthening him. I want y'all to turn over to, I didn't do this last service. I want y'all to turn to 2 Kings. 2 Kings. Verse 19. And verse 35. 2 Kings chapter 19, verse 35. You got it? Don't be lying in church. Just say you ain't got it. It's okay. 2 Kings chapter 19, verse 35. I'm not that fast. I just had something sitting here, so I knew where to flip to. That's why I beat y'all. 2 Kings 19:35. Y'all got it? All right, watch this. It says, and it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 180,500. And when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. Look up this way. Jesus does not shift from humanity to divinity mid-sentence. Jesus is still all humanity. In that verse where he says, if it's possible, take this cup. Then he says, nevertheless, he's still all human. The reason he's able to shift to say, you know what, even though I got to go through this, I'm okay with it because it's your will, is because God sends an angel and the angel begins to strengthen him in the middle of what he's going through. I showed y'all the text in Kings to show you that God uses angels at his disposal to do his will in any moment that he desires to do it. Watch this. On behalf of you and I. We don't worship angels because angels serve God and they serve us as we serve God. Angels are not God, but they are his servants. So many of us don't understand that when you are going through some stuff, the only reason you have made it through stuff that you should have lost your mind is because you did not realize God has sent a ministering angel to sit by your bedside, to sit in your hospital room, to sit in the courtroom. You think you kept yourself from losing your mind, but you didn't keep yourself from losing your mind. You think you had great faith and that you had all this faith. You ain't had no type of faith. It was that in the midst of you about to go crazy, God said, I can't let the one that I am purchasing lose their mind. They are too valuable to me, and so I'm not going to let them go through this by themselves. He said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you, but lo, I'm with you even to the end of the age. Every time you thought you were by yourself, the only reason you made it through what you made it through is because God showed up in the midst of your struggle. He showed up in the midst of your pain, and he sent his angel to sit by your side. The reason you ain't stabbed that joker when you was about to stab that joker ain't because you got self-control, because an angel caught your hand. The reason that you you didn't go off that cliff, even though your blood alcohol was twice the legal limit. You never should have made it home. It wasn't because you learned to drive drunk. It's because every time you were drunk and driving, an angel stepped in the driver's seat and guided your hands. The reason you didn't die from overdose, the reason you ain't lose your life has nothing to do with your street smart or how fine you are, but because God sent an angel at the right time, at the right moment to give you strength you didn't know you had. God sent angels to kill people that was trying to kill you. It says angels strengthened him. And being in agony, he prays harder, to the point the blood is coming off his face. Verse 45, and this is where we end this week. It says, and when he rose up from prayer. Many of us have not risen yet because we've not prayed yet. He gets up because he's been in prayer. Jesus in this text, y'all, look up this way real quick. He begins to take on all our stuff. That's what he's asking the Father. Is there any other way to buy them without me taking on all this? It ain't even my mess. You want me to shed my blood for liars. You want me to shed my blood for people that don't even like us sometimes. You want me to shed my blood for folk that are going to do all kind of crazy, insane things, but you want me to pay a price for they mess. They messed this up. And I got to clean it up? And at that moment, Jesus' love for us overwhelms his desire. And it overwhelms his desire not because his flesh is diminished, but because an angel shows up and helps him realize your obedience equals their freedom. Some of you in this room, watch this, listen, and we're done. The longer you avoid pain, the longer you delay your purpose. It's not going to be easy. And I'm sorry if some preacher lied to you and told you it's going to be easy. That if you come to Jesus, he going to fix it. If you come to Jesus, he going to turn it around. If you come to Jesus, he going to give you a house and you're going to get a new car. You come to Jesus, if you just tithe and you put your money on the altar, if you just turn around 12 times, if you spit on the floor, if you pour a bottle of Crisco oil on your head at exactly midnight with the green cloth under your foot, and you declare that the third angel in the heavenlies shall have his wings clipped and he shall fall from the sky and stand under your feet, and you shall have authority over all the angelic demonic spirits that have been through your family line, and you start proclaiming all this stuff, and you run around the church and you fall on the floor and you prophesy. You'd have been in every prophetic line. You'd have been under every apostle. You'd have bought every anointed cloth from Jerusalem that somebody said they got out of the cave that Jesus was in, on the cloth that he laid on. Somebody told you they didn't pull and scraped his blood off the tomb wall, and now you done bought this little thing and you got it sitting in your house, and every time you go through, you sprinkling this dried, red, rusted water all over your house, talking about the blood of Jesus, and ain't nothing changed. Isn't it amazing? Nothing has changed after all this stuff you done been through, all the rituals you have performed, all the prayers that you have copied from somewhere and read, all the times you turned around 7 times, all the times you named it and claimed it, blabbed it and grabbed it, because all that stuff is us simply trying to avoid going to the cross, and you do not get resurrection without crucifixion. And so we keep doing all these antics trying to avoid the pain of going through what we have to go through. Some of you, God is not calling you to be miraculously healed. I'm sorry. I did not come to give you the news you wanted to hear. I loved my auntie with all, but I remember when she laid up in that hospital with stage 4 cancer and we were praying for her healing, she said, nephew, you can stop praying now. I'm going to be all right. I thought God had gave her a word that she was going to be healed, but she said, nevertheless, not my will, but his will be done. When you get a nevertheless in your spirit and you say, it does not matter whether God gives me a house. It doesn't matter whether he gives me a car. It doesn't matter if he heals my body. It doesn't matter if he brings my child home. It doesn't matter if I become a millionaire. It doesn't matter if I get the husband I want or the wife that I want. It does not matter if my career takes off. When you get a nevertheless in your spirit where it does not matter, watch this, if God don't do nothing else, you can say he's already done enough. Is there anybody in this house that has a nevertheless in their spirit when you can worship God no matter what hell is sitting in front of you? Yes, you got to go through a cross. Yes, you got to go through some haters. Yes, you got to go through some backstabbers. Yes, you got to be broke for a season. Yes, you may be homeless. Yes, you may be struggling. But if he is God and God by himself, your nevertheless will rise up in you and you will be able to say, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make her boast of the Lord. The humble hear thereof and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. I don't understand folk that have to struggle to worship God when you would not be here if it had not been for the Lord on your side. You didn't save yourself. You didn't keep yourself. You didn't protect yourself. You ain't keep yourself sane. You ain't put food on your table. You ain't put clothes on your back. But God, who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, has watched over us when we've been a hot mess, when we've been lazy and lethargic, when we've been apathetic, when we did not care about him. He's still, watch this, he's still, he's still. When you and I refuse to worship, he's still. When you said, I don't even know if God is real, he's still. When you said, I ain't praying no more, he's still. When you gave up on him, he's still. When you said this is too much, he's still. When you said I can't take it anymore, he's still. You say, preacher, I don't think he did anything. But you still breathing. Watch this. You still because he stilled. You are because he did. If he had not done, you and I could not be. The crazy thing about the whole thing is, you were, okay, let me close with this. When you buy a car, anybody ever bought a car? Anybody ever bought a bicycle? Anybody ever bought anything? Okay, some of y'all, I'm confused. I don't know. Anybody ever bought anything? Raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down. Anybody ever bought a car? Raise your hand. Anybody ever stole a car? Police ain't working today to go here. This is a grace. This is a safe zone. You can confess your faults one to another and not be arrested. Watch this. Cars come with warranties. And they say your car warranty covers powertrain, engine, all the stuff for 50, 60, 80,000 miles. Some cars is longer than others. Hyundai, I think, is 5 years, 60,000 miles. If anything major happens to your car in 5 years or under 60,000 miles, they say, we'll fix it. The reason they say that is because they know that everything they are giving you in that car should handle anything that comes its way in that 5 years and 60,000 miles. The way they have figured this out is because they tear the car up. They make one and then they tear it up. They make one and they drench it in rain. They make one, they put it on this thing called a dyno, and they just let it run and run and run. They make one, they put it on these little fake things that make the wheels like it's driving over a mountain. They make one, they put it in extreme conditions that you and I will actually never be in to see at what point will this thing that we made break. And based upon the point in which it has broken in its past, it determines how to cover its future. When you were made in eternity, before you were here, God tested what he made. So he knew before you were manufactured that based on your design, you can handle X, Y, and Z. So when you stepped into time, he already knew what you can deal with, and that's why he gave you the warranty he gave you. I will never put more on you than you can bear. So watch this. That means no matter what you go through, you have already overcome because you're built to handle everything that comes. He can say, no weapon formed against you will prosper, because he's tested every weapon. You say, when did he test it? He tested weapons on me? No. He tested the weapons on Jesus. He tested them on himself. And then when you and I accept him, we become like him. There's nothing you have hoarded, nothing you have taken, nothing you have dealt with that Jesus can't handle. And because he handled it, you can handle life. Every head bowed, every eye closed. Every head bowed, every eye closed. This week, this is what we're doing this week. Heads bowed, eyes closed. We're still believing God to do crazy stuff by Easter, which is next week. We've been believing that for some months now. But some of us in this room, you're going to have to go through some painful stuff first. And this is the season in which God is saying, you don't have to fight against it. I've already equipped you to handle what's coming your way. Heads bowed, eyes closed.